Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Raj Nation, the startup hype man, here with a quick little interlude episode to answer the burning question on everyone's mind: where the hell has Startup Hype Man, the podcast, been? We did our season finale of the last season with Will Herman I think it aired in June. And since then, it is now almost October when I'm recording and putting this online, and there have been no new episodes of the show, save for some best of, repeat episodes that we've posted over the last several weeks. Yes, June 24th, in fact, was the last time we published a new episode. So where has the podcast been and what's happening next? Well, I am glad we didn't lose a ton of subscribers in the process of not posting new episodes, like for real new episodes. What I've been working on in the background has been, well, first off, I'll tell you one thing. Business for Startup Hype Man was slow during the summer months, so I wanted to just reallocate my time there and less on the podcast. I also wanted to kind of do a strategic brainstorm or a strategic reset on what am I doing with the podcast overall and what's the direction of it. And so I pulled my team together and we worked on that. And then I was able to get my business development game back together. And now, as I'm recording this, business is actually going really well, which is awesome. Which actually means I have less time to do the podcast. But it's one of those things where, like, when you have a lot to do, then you do everything. And when you don't have a lot to do, then you kind of do nothing. So we did the brainstorm internally. I kind of got just like my head straight on like what I'm doing with this show, and may have made some changes. Nothing huge, but just some like internal like tactical changes. So right off the bat, I'll tell you my goal for the launch date of the new season is, let me pull up my calendar here. My goal for the launch date is October 20th, 2019. October 20th is a Sunday. So now let me get into some of the changes that I want to put into place here, or that I'm going to put into place for this new season of the podcast. And also it'll help explain why things have taken so long. So number one, I know with the new season, historically this show has always released on a Monday morning, like roughly like somewhere between like 5 and 8 a.m. Central Time. My new plan is Sundays at noon Central Time. And I'm doing that because, why not just get a little bit earlier jump on the week with putting the episode out, but also because I think that a lot of people in the startup world, like they're actually consuming content like towards the end of their Sundays, or maybe if they're driving around like grocery shopping on Sundays, they are consuming business content like before the formal work week hits. So I think posting episodes on Sundays will actually get more early in the week listeners. And I think it'll just be, I think if you're an avid listener of this show, I would guess you'll appreciate having an episode on a Sunday, but, contact me if you think that's stupid. The other things that I've been working on in the background to try and just improve the overall quality of the show, the co-working space that I operate out of, in Chicago. It's in the Pilsen neighborhood in Chicago. It's called Lacuna Lofts. The building is called Lacuna Lofts. The co-working space is called Blue Lacuna. Originally, when I moved into this office in May of this year, I have a single person office inside of the larger co-working space. And it's a good office, but there's no like ceiling on the office. So you can hear other people's conversations outside. So I didn't want to record new episodes knowing that the audio quality and the audio experience would be terrible. So I was working with them to get them to like put a roof on my office and soundproof it. But then amidst all this, like the building got sold, and so things got delayed. I mean, we're still here in the building, but we in the house. Anyway, sidebar. We still in the house, but because of the building getting sold, there was a whole new like approval process that had to be put through to do any construction. And so getting my office, what would you say, refurbished, or getting my office soundproof, let's say, was put on delay. However, what was really cool that happened in the meantime of that was they did get approval to build a podcast studio right here in Lacuna Lofts in the Blue Lacuna co-working space. So as I broadcast this to you right now, I am in the new podcast studio. It's still being finished, so I'm still using like my old microphone, and some of the final soundproofing is still being put in place, but it is usable and it looks great. Like it's awesome. This is what I've always wanted out of a co-working space. And the audio quality, once they finish everything in here, is going to be good. It's going to sound way more professional than this show has ever sounded before. I mean, unprofessional in the sense that it's me and I like to make jokes and stuff and be casual with my guests, but professional in terms of the quality, the audio quality of the episodes. So that'll be finished up pretty soon. And then I'll be able to get more and more episodes recorded. As I'm doing this now, I literally just finished recording the first episode of the new season with a guy named Ish Jindal, and it was a really good episode. I'm really excited. The topic was advanced customer segmentation, which I think you're really going to dig. And we did it on this old microphone that I'm still using with you right now as you're hearing my voice. But I was able to come into the podcast studio and at least use it. And this is what's really cool is there's a flat screen TV like on a big stand-up post here. And I was able to like rig the environment so that way I can actually broadcast this on Instagram Live. So the recording is going to come in the podcast feed, but if people want to watch and tune in live, they can do that on the @Startup Hype Man Instagram account. They can watch live video of the podcast being recorded because I'm able to, through the Zoom call, and so that the big TV monitor that sits on the stand is behind the desk. So I'm able to plug the HDMI cord into my computer and then drag my guest Zoom screen onto the big monitor. So now behind my shoulder is a big TV screen with the video of my guest. And then I'm still looking at my computer, which is, so my back is to that TV screen. And then I can put the phone right on the tabletop. So that way the phone is able to catch me in the video, in the frame, as well as my guest on the big screen TV behind my shoulder. And it's a really cool video experience and something that I think, with enough growth of the Instagram audience, could be something that's really cool that the Startup Hype Man Instagram account does that not many other people are doing. So that's one of the things. Another thing is, I really have been looking at like, who do I want as guests on the show? And because the Startup Hype Man like business, the consulting practice that I run, that is the meat of Startup Hype Man, has really more and more transitioned towards the SaaS market. I have been looking at who would be good guests who are in the SaaS space. And while I've been able to find people, this is what kind of sucks is I'm always cognizant of like having a diverse representation of the startup ecosystem as guests on the show. And the SaaS landscape, like particularly software as a service, has a lot of white men as founders and CEOs. Now, disclaimer, there's nothing wrong with being a white man, okay? But what I'm saying is it's getting harder and harder to find people of color as guests. It's getting harder to find women as guests because the current networks I'm exposed to and the places that I look, the pool of the available people, at least that's exposed to me, is predominantly white men and white heterosexual men at that, right? Because the LGBTQ community is also a representation of diversity. So I've just been like trying to take more time to find a diverse representation of guests. And I will just throw it out there. It's going to be likely that season 12 is going to be light on female guests. And that's not something I'm proud to say. It's just it's just an inkling I have for how this season is going to play out because I'm searching, but I also know I need to get new episodes up and launched. So I'm trying to do that while I'm also searching in the background, and I can't publish nothing while I try to find like where are the female founders at in SaaS. Now, as well as the people of color, not just the female founders, but the people of color, LGBTQ community, disabled, military veteran, right? All those things. So as I say that, my ask to you, the listener, is do you know female, LGBTQ, people of color? Do you know founders, specifically SaaS founders, who come from those groups and backgrounds? And can you put them in touch with me? I mean, my email is very public, Rajiv, R-A-J-I-V, at startuphypeman.com. Or you could send it to my media coordinator, media at startuphypeman.com. Her name's Nadine. She's great. You could send an email to one of us and just make the introduction directly. Now, the caveat that I have with this is because of, I guess, where my business is headed, and it's serving more and more startups who are in like the Series A stage. Like they're scaling now. They've gotten past the sort of initial validation. They've gotten their funding in, or if they're bootstrapped, they're doing pretty well. That's where I'm seeing less and less of the diverse representation. Like it has not been hard before this to get a founder from any type of background who's just starting out or who's in their seed stage or product market fit or market validation, right? It gets harder once it gets to the Series A stage. Not to say I won't have any guests whatsoever who are in the earlier stage, but I want more guests who are in that scaling up stage, right? They just raised, I don't know, $5, $7, $8 million round. They're going to expand the team pretty significantly over the next 6 months. I want to talk to them because that's what more of my customer base is at this point. So my ask again, do you know diverse founders in that category, in the Series A category? And if you do, can you send them my way? The other thing that I have been working on in the background is trying to get sponsors for the podcast. And that has been a long, relatively long, meaning like a couple months of working on it. And initially I wanted to wait until I launched the new season, until I had some sponsors in place. And I've just realized those conversations are taking longer and I can't wait anymore. So I'm just going to launch the season. And if we get some sponsors in for this season, maybe it'll come like mid-season. Great. But if not, I just got to push it out a little bit. I got to push out having sponsors on episodes a little bit further. And just to, I don't know if it matters to you, but when I look for sponsors, I'm looking at who's going to actually be valuable to you, the listener. If you were to reach out to them, if you were to get put in touch with them. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm looking at things like incubators and accelerators to be sponsors. I am looking at other service providers for startups to be sponsors. I'm looking at venture capital firms to be sponsors. I'm looking at crowdfunding platforms to be sponsors, resources that will actually help you, the listener. So I'm in conversations with a few, with different people from those categories. And I just want to I don't want to wait anymore for them to say yes or no. I'm just going to hit go mode. And if they get on board at some point, great. So those have been the main things. And then, in terms of strategy for the podcast this year, or like content you can expect, historically, this podcast has always been phrased as a question, right? So if we go back, to last season, we had things like, how do you raise capital with no revenue as the title of an episode? How do you generate rapid revenue growth as the title of an episode? How do you figure out founder equity distribution as the title of an episode? And what I realized was the naming convention needs to change to attract more people. That phrasing it like that as a how do you question just doesn't perform as well as it could if it were named something else. It would get more listens with a different naming convention. So now the episodes being questions is we're doing away with that. And what it's always been is like S11E12 Will Herman : how do you figure out equity distribution ? So now the naming convention, with the episode I just recorded, that's season 1, or that's episode 1 of season 12, the new naming convention is going to be just more like a direct statement about what we're talking about. So it would be like S12E1, Advanced Customer Segmentation Strategies with Ish Jindal. And then maybe I'll put like founder of TARS after that. Right? So that way when you see the episode, you've got a much better idea of what you're going to click and listen to. Because what I also realize, in addition to just like it being more click attractive, I also realize a lot of times in the midst of recording an episode, like we know when we start the episode, what the question is. But then the guest would say something like mid-episode, and in my head I'd be like, oh my God, if we could just take that phrase and make it the title of this episode, it would just sound so good and people would want to listen to that. So now I'm giving myself that opportunity to allow that, that sort of like serendipity to happen, and allowing some flexibility in the naming convention of the episodes, knowing that the naming convention will still be a statement, right? So that's the rigidness. It'll be a statement. It'll be title, then guest name, but we're doing away with questions and allowing for flexibility in what the statements could be. Other things that I am potentially going to add for this season, and it probably won't be with episode 1, but maybe later in the season, is potentially a new segment at the end of an episode with a guest called Startup Open Mic, where you, the listener, can submit a 60-second pitch to just play, uninterrupted at the end of an episode. A little bit similar to how I built this podcast, where at the end they have how you built this, but that still becomes like a little like mini interview. This would just kind of be like a 60-second, pre-recorded clip that you just send to me, and my team drops in to the end of the episode. And I would tee it up, right? I'd be like, stick around because our next segment, you're not going to miss our next segment, Startup Open Mic. And then I'll say, today on Open Mic, we've got so-and-so. Maybe I'll read your bio, and then we'll play that pre-recorded clip. I'm also toying with, and if you're on my email list, I will put a feeler out for this. I'm also toying with having Startup Open Mic be like a live workshop of your pitch just for like 2 minutes. Like you pitch for 60 seconds, and then I give you some helpful feedback for 60 seconds. And then that way the entire community gets to benefit. And we're not making you look stupid by any means. We're literally saying like, hey, here's how I would improve this. So that way, ultimately, you get help on your journey as an entrepreneur. I'm going to put a feeler out to my email list to see if they would be interested in that. Or maybe we'll just do it as a pre-recorded clip. Or maybe we won't do Startup Open Mic whatsoever. A couple other things here before I finish this spiel and let you on with your day. I'm adding a new thing called hype sessions, so that will be interspersed throughout the season. These are 10-minute mini episodes where I am talking with either a investor or another service provider in the industry, or like a media platform, something like that, or just something that could be beneficial to you, where it's just a 10-minute episode where we're actually they're just talking about their company, and I'm helping promote them sort of in the name of helping you see what resources are available to you to help your company grow. So those hype session episodes, the way we're doing it is actually we're recording it as a video, which will be posted to the @StartupHypeMan Instagram TV. It will also be posted to my Rajiv Nathan LinkedIn page. And then the audio will be ripped for the podcast feed. So you'll get, I've already recorded 4 of them. We'll probably do 2 more. So maybe every other week during the season, you'll get a hashtag hype session mini 10-minute episode in addition to that week's normal full-length episode. The last thing I'll say is I'm going to try and pull this off maybe once or twice for this season, is something called a startup roundtable, where it is actually like a 3 or 4 person roundtable discussion on a specific topic. And my intention is to get like an investor a founder, me, and then some other third party to all be talking about a specific issue, kind of like if you were watching like you're watching on TV. So for example, like yesterday, I was part of a panel event at Catapult Chicago, the incubator, on diversity, equity, and inclusion for your like basically DEI policies and practices as your startup scales. And I was sitting next to an entrepreneur who has scaled his company past Series A. I was on the panel. To my left was a investor with Chicago Ventures, and then to her left was someone who worked at the company Ethos Talent, which is actually like a DEI culture building. I'm poorly characterizing them with this description, but they help companies get their people operations in order as they scale. And in fact, the founder of that company, Alita Miranda Wolf, was a guest on this podcast about a year ago. So one of her employees joined and was a panelist. So I'm looking at that and I'm like, hey, why don't I get the four of us together again? Oh, and it was also hosted and moderated by Blue Point Consulting. Why don't I get the 4 or 5 of us together again and just do like, redo that panel, but for the sake of audio, and have it be like this audio roundtable discussion. So I want to try and pull off 1 or 2 of those this season. I think that's the end of what I wanted to say. That's the state of the podcast. I literally had nothing written down for this. I just was like, you know what? I just recorded episode 1. Why don't I do the thing I've been putting off for the last month and tell the audience what the fuck is going on? So I just been off the top of my head talking for the last 20 something minutes. Again, the new season is going to launch probably October 20th. So just be on the lookout for that. And that's a Sunday. My ask of you is if you know any Series A stage SaaS founders who represent sort of what we traditionally think of as diversity. So either a female founder, a person of color. I'll tell you what, and person of color is not even that hard to find if they are Indian. So if you can find me a Series A founder who's either female or Latinx or African American, or maybe a disabled person, right? And they're in the SaaS space, I would love an introduction. You can email Rajiv, Rajiv, at startuphypeman.com, or send it to Nadine, my media coordinator, media at startuphypeman.com. I would love to talk to them to see if we can get them on the show. And then my other ask to close out here, and I'll let you get on with your day, is if you have not done so yet, if you have an iPhone, can you go into your Apple Podcast app and leave a review for the show? Exposure of the show and how it shows up in Apple search results and in all podcast search results is largely contingent on the number of reviews the show receives. Now, obviously, it's the number of like 5-star reviews, but I don't know, give whatever review you want. I don't want to like push you into giving a 5-star review if it's not 5 stars for you. Give it 3, give it 4, but just give it a star review or star the review, I should say, and then write a little like blurb on what value do you get out of the show. Not just for reach purposes, but I would love to know what value are you getting out of the show, because that helps me guide content as well. Are there specific topics you want to hear about, or specific people you want to hear on the show? Again, send an email. Either send it to me, Rajiv at startuphypeman.com, or send it to Nadine, our media coordinator, media at startuphypeman.com. I think that's everything. If you're not on the email tribe and you want to get emails that don't suck in your inbox, startuphypeman.com, subscribe there. You'll also get my SaaS video 10-minute masterclass for free when you give your email. Follow us on the gram at Startup Hype Man, especially if you want to be tuned into some of these live video look-ins when we record these episodes before they ever come out on the podcast feed. And then I'm not too active on Twitter, but you can follow on Twitter as well. And add me on LinkedIn personally, Rajiv Nathan, or just type in Raj Nation into LinkedIn and it'll show up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Thank you for listening to my little explanation here of where the hell has the podcast been and what's next. So just expect new content coming your way pretty soon. Goal of October 20th, 2019 to drop the new season. Thank you, everybody. I am Raj Nation. I am your hype man. Hype man out. Word up. Raise up.